It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. Over the weekend in San Diego, there was vandalism, specifically targeted towards parking meters. Parking meters in an area in San Diego in Bankers Hill were tagged green. Super glue was shoved into the card reader so you could not use the parking meter. Now, is this just your run-of-the-mill vandalism, or is this a sign that the locals have had enough of being nickeled and dimed everywhere they go? Because there's been a lot of that going on in San Diego in the last year, and it looks like there's going to be a lot more of it. And I think people have had enough of the constant hikes in fees and taxes and everything else that is going on down there. To talk to us about this today, I am so happy to welcome the host of the California Underground podcast, which you can follow them by going to youtube.com/@CaliforniaUnderground. I subscribe to their channel. Or you go to their website, californiaunderground.live. Phil Mauriello, host of the California Underground podcast. Welcome to the News Blitz.
Thank you so much for having me, Randy.
So, Phil, what the hell has been going on with the constant increasing in parking fees? Every day there's a new story about the increase in parking fees somewhere in San Diego, whether it was the gas lamp of the fall or now for the first time in over 150 years, they're charging for parking at Balboa Park.
Well, you have to go back to the fiscal budget from last year that came out that showed that San Diego has a $285 million budget deficit. And this is all on the back of the fact that even though there's a budget deficit, San Diego has still brought in a record $2.1 billion in revenue, and they still don't have enough money to cover all of their services and all the city services. So they're scrambling, and Mayor Todd Gloria, who doesn't know his way out of this, is scrambling to find any way to raise revenue. Parking fees downtown, now it's dynamic pricing downtown. So if there's a Padres game, your meter parking can go from $2.50 to $20 an hour. And now the latest thing is this Balboa parking, which is everyone in an uproar because it's always been free. So now that people are lashing out and vandalizing it, putting gum in there and caulk and all sorts of stuff to make their voices known to San Diego that they're tired of being overcharged and nickel and dime for every little thing because they didn't know how to manage a budget.
Well, and it's so funny because, you know, San Diego, like Los Angeles, is a very expensive city to live in. Everyone's thinking about affordability. And yes, the budget is blown in San Diego like it is in so many other cities. But instead of living within their means and cutting where they need to cut in essential places, they're trying to raise as much revenue as possible, which is just making it that much more expensive to live in San Diego. There are going to be locals that have used that park for decades that are going to say, no, I'm not paying. I don't care if it's $2.50 an hour, $3 an hour. I'm not paying to use the park that I already pay for with my tax dollars.
And the funny thing is, I guess it's not really funny, but in the end, it's kind of crazy that they're trying to nickel and dime this parking at Balboa. But because they've started late, their original projection was they were going to raise $15 million. But now because it started late, they're probably going to raise more around $4 million. And after administrative expenses and shuttles for volunteers and employees, the city's only going to net about $2 million, which is 0.1% of the entire budget. And this is the action that Todd Gloria takes. He's sort of just nipping around the edges. And he's not tackling the real issues, which is there's way too many people. There's too much staffing. There's too many pensions. It's just gotten, the government down here has gotten so bloated, it can't sustain itself. And they're trying to nickel and dime the citizens because they overspent all of our money. And all of this is probably not going to make a rip of difference in the end, with $2 million from Balboa parking, and they're trying to cut, $1 million salary here, or maybe $100,000 for fire pits. It doesn't really make a drop in the ocean, really.
Yeah, that was one that I saw that it was like, wow, you're really not understanding that you're pissing off the locals when you want to get rid of fire pits. That just saves you almost no money, but it's going to completely irritate people, and it's going to make it so people do that illegally, or there's going to be more littering on the beach. So there's a lot of short-sighted thinking coming out of San Diego, whether it's Todd Gloria or the city council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, this is the issue when you have a completely Democratic-run city council. Now, I know some of the city council members, like Raul Campillo, he actually voted against this. But again, I asked them point blank, I said, hey, have you actually proposed deep cuts in the budget? Have you said we got to actually cut the size of this government? I haven't gotten a response yet from him. So I don't think any of that deep cutting or proposed deep cut budgets is actually happening down here.
We're speaking with Phil Mauriello. He's the host of the California Underground podcast. You can get him on Twitter at California Underground. Now, one of the members of the city council seems to be the most outspoken about increasing taxes, increasing fees, and for one, trying to go to war with Airbnb, and that is Sean Elo Rivera, where they're trying to make it so nobody can rent out a short-term unit without paying massive vacancy fees and massive vacancy taxes, and he sure seems ready to go to war with them.
Let me tell you, right, Sean Elo Rivera is probably the one of the most arrogant politicians I know in California politics. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of arrogant politicians here in California. He is one of the only city council member I know who lectures business owners or property owners from his seat up on the city council. And yeah, they've instituted this policy, which are basically going to price out all of these vacation rentals. And they're kind of talking out both sides of their mouth. They want to do it to punish and get rid of the vacation rentals. But then Sean Elo Rivera turns around and goes, look at all the money we're going to raise by charging these exorbitant fees. Like, they're calculating this into their projected revenue. Again, this is why they have bad budgeting techniques. They're projecting this into their revenue of we're going to raise all of this money from these fees, when in reality, most of these property owners are not going to pay the fees. They're just going to stop renting, which hurts the local economy anyway. But he's one of the one city council member who I've never seen lecture business owners and tell them, don't you dare try and figure out a way around any of my ordinances because I have a way to retaliate. It's unbelievable, the arrogance of Sean Elo Rivera down here.
Yeah, and it's got to hurt just a little extra much because of that ballot measure a few years ago. The members of the city council are getting raises every single year in the middle of them doing the worst job any city council has ever done for this city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've never seen as politicians ever cut their own salaries. They seem to always get their own raises. But I think this all goes back to a year ago. They were expecting a measure down here to pass that would have increased the sales tax by 0.5%. And I think they were all expecting that this would pass with flying colors. Why not? It's a blue city. They always vote for more taxes. But it actually failed. And that, I think, was something that they were not expecting. And this is why there's this huge, almost $300 million budget deficit, because they were expecting all of this money from a sales tax that didn't come to fruition. And they were absolutely shocked that the people of San Diego said, no, we're not paying any more sales tax. I don't care if it's 0.5% or 0.1001%. It doesn't matter, because people are fed up with how expensive it is down here. And they were banking on it, but they're still getting their huge salaries, and they're still trying to figure out how to fill that $300 million budget deficit right now.
It's almost like if you're expecting a big bonus at your job and you go ahead and you run up your credit card because, hey, the money's coming, and then it doesn't come. Well, now you're screwed. Yeah,
I mean, Christmas just ended a couple weeks ago. It's like Chevy Chase and Christmas Vacation. He's playing in that big pool based on the bonus he was going to get. In the end, San Diego got the Jelly of the Month Club, and they didn't get the money they were expecting. So, that's the situation they're in right now. But in the end, they got to make deep cuts. They got to figure out how to reduce the overall size of government. Services are disapproved by all the citizens, low poll ratings by all of them. I mean, it's just unbelievable that a city with $2.1 billion in revenue can't figure out how to provide basic services such as trash cleanup, street cleanup. I mean, just basic things, and they're overspending.
We're speaking with Phil Mauriello. He's the host of the California Underground podcast. You can go to their website, californiaunderground.live. Now, you mentioned those sales tax increases that failed in 2024. I just saw that in the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego, they're going to bring those back and put them on the 2026 ballot. And the unions behind it say, oh, they'll definitely pass this time.
They'll never stop, and it's almost like you can breathe a small sigh of relief when it fails that 1 year, but you almost have to gear up immediately because they're going to put it back on the ballot. That the unions are going to put way more money behind it. It just never ends. It seems like every election cycle we're fighting off these tax raises, whether it's sales tax, whether it's here in California with the billionaires tax, which likely will be a proposition this year at election day. So it never seems to end. Even though they fail and the people have spoken, we said we don't want a sales tax. Unions and California Democrats will go ahead and they'll put it right back on the ballot and try and sell it another way. And we always joke on the show that they like to call these things the free puppy dogs and ice cream kind of ballot measures of, if you vote for this, it's all the nice stuff and helps school children and puppy dogs and ice cream and all that stuff. In reality, you got to read the fine print and show that this is really just to fill budget deficit holes in the budget, and in the end, it's just going to go and bloat the government even more because they count on that money.
Well, and this is all coming at a time where Todd Gloria, the mayor of San Diego, is taking victory lap after victory lap, claiming how well run the city is, taking a victory lap on housing because San Diego is the most progressive, allowing the ADU bonus law to construct in the backyard of some single family homes, 3, 4, 5, 6-story little apartment buildings, even though they're not any cheaper than any other apartments. In fact, I remember he did a press conference celebrating how San Diego built more housing than any other major city in California. And he did that press conference in front of a brand new apartment building where a 1-bedroom was going for $4,000. And that's a win?
No, it's the housing prices down here are ridiculous. And they just keep stacking more and more apartments. I live in a neighborhood that we keep seeing apartment complexes go up. They're knocking down 100-year-old, beautiful little craftsman homes. And they're knocking them down, putting up these apartments, and it's just getting more congested. And they're still charging an arm and a leg. I mean, a studio down here close to $3,000 for a studio in San Diego City. And speaking of my neighborhood, here's an example of another project of waste in San Diego. There is a promenade going on in our neighborhood that and I'm not joking, Randy. The project is they are repaving this street. They're going to paint it the colors of the LGBT flag and put a little park at the end. Now, if you had to guess, how much would you think paving and painting a little area, one street would cost? How much do you think that would cost for a project like that?
Well, if this was a regular business and not the government, I would say a couple $1,000s. I'm going to guess it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more. It's about $30 million to repave and paint this street and put a playground at the end of it. And this is and they haven't even budgeted how they're going to take care of this park going forward. And knowing the homeless situation is probably just going to end up becoming a homeless encampment anyway. So it's just these are the examples of what they're spending money on down here in San Diego. And it just makes you pull your hair out and go, what are we doing down here? Why am I paying all this money to live here when our city government doesn't know what they're doing?
Last question before you go, because you did bring up homelessness. One of the other things that Todd Gloria tried to take victory laps on was San Diego's approach to homelessness, specifically the safe camping sites, where the city and the county of San Diego paid millions of dollars to nonprofits to run places where you can safely pitch your tent, who are now being sued by the people in those safe camping sites because one of them was solicited for prostitution, one of them was offered drugs, and one of them was assaulted, and all kinds of nightmares that are going on. Do you think the rest of the state should be following this model?
I mean, I saw those tents go up. They're right off of the 5, right before you get to downtown here in San Diego. First off, they're built on a pavement, like a big parking lot. So during the summer, the tents get to be about 120 degrees. And they thought it's just out of sight, out of mind. Let's just throw them in these tents, and then give them, I think, bologna sandwiches or something. And that should be enough. That's what we're trying to do to get them off the street. But when you look at how much money cities like San Diego, especially up there in LA, I mean, we've done tons of videos about how much, LA spends on homelessness. It's unbelievable. You think homeless should be getting more than just a couple tents and a bologna sandwich. And most people aren't safe in these tents. And this is just, it's unbelievable. You look at the product that government puts out when they say they want to cure or solve homelessness, and they put out these tents on a parking lot. You kind of scratch your head in a logical manner and go, what did we spend $28 billion on for tents in a parking lot? What's going on here? And again, it comes down to where did all that money go? How many NGOs or nonprofits are making their money? The homeless industrial complex is making their money off of all of this. And in the end, I don't think anybody should be following this example, because the people who get harmed are the homeless who are just looking for a safe place to stay. And at the end of the day, they're the ones getting abused or solicited or in danger of their lives or heat stroke or all these things. But billions of dollars go somewhere, and it's clearly not making it to the homeless.
Phil Mauriello, he's the host of the California Underground podcast. Subscribe to their YouTube channel, and I have subscribed. You go to youtube.com/@California Underground, and you're going live tonight at 8, right?
That's correct. Tonight we're going to talk about some of the new laws. There's 800. We can't cover all of them in an hour, but we're going to cover the highlights, what to look for in 2026 for the new laws here in California.
Phil Mauriello, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great show, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks a lot, Randy.
It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email us, you can do so at randywangradio@gmail.com. That's randywangradio@gmail.com. Whether you have a comment on the show, you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest, I try to read and respond to as many emails as I can. randywangradio@gmail.com. I want to give a big thanks to Phil from the California Underground for coming on. It's so funny. This guy showed up in my algorithm a few months ago, maybe a year ago. And I was like, okay, talking about California stuff. So I hit subscribe. And this is what happened. I was going through my stories this morning yesterday morning. And I saw this story in San Diego about the vandalized parking meter. And I loved it. Because I'm like, yes, after literally every week for like the past year, it's been San Diego increasing the fee on trash, San Diego increasing the fee on parking here, parking there, parking everywhere. It's going to cost $16 now to park at the San Diego Zoo. It's just nonstop. So as the second I looked at that, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what is happening. The residents have had enough. And I happen to follow California Underground on Instagram. And what do you know? Phil came to the very same conclusion that people have had enough. And that's what this is. This isn't your run-of-the-mill vandalism, what have you. This is people sick and tired of being nickeled and dimed. And what are they getting for it? The services in that city are worse than they've ever been. It's like, it's not in the scale of Los Angeles, but we don't want any city to become Los Angeles. You want to see the cities that are being successful, the ones that are turning the corner. San Jose, turning the corner. Be like them. Irvine, great example. Be like them. But don't be like Los Angeles, whatever you do. We want San Diego to be successful. That's such a fun city. That is beer mecca. I want to feel safe in San Diego, and I don't want to have to pay through the nose for parking. So can we reverse course on that? That would be great. Well, that's going to be it for me today because UCLA is coming up, everybody. The Bruins are taking on the Badgers. That's right. UCLA's got a 10-4 record. Wisconsin's got a 9-5 record. You're going to hear it all right here. The Big Ten coming up right here. It's UCLA Bruins men's basketball right here on the home of the Bruins. Talk Radio 790 KABC.